In my country, prosecutors visit detention facilities. The preliminary investigations are conducted by an investigations bureau called Rwanda Investigation Bureau. However, prosecutors, these investigators are under the authorities of the prosecutors, and so prosecutors can visit, but judges cannot. However, judges in Rwanda, being a civil law country, but now currently hybrid, they also go do investigations. However, coming back to the issue of prosecutors and detaining people that takes so long, even which delays all these trials that we are talking about, I just want to share our experiences and practices. We have inspectorate departments in our respective judiciary and prosecution services. And I think this would also be a very good idea if other countries who don't have inspectors, we have inspectors for judges, we have inspectors for prosecutors. And we have a superior counsel for the judiciary, and we have a superior counsel for the prosecution. So prosecutors who go beyond what the law requires them to do are sanctioned, are punished, are even expelled. And so we have the Inspector General of the prosecution who checks on the quality of investigations that is being done and the delays, whether they have been respected as far as the criminal procedure is concerned. And we also have the Inspector General of the Judiciary, who does not give instructions to judges because they are independent, but who also checks on the work of other officers of the judiciary, like registrars and others. But even judges who commit errors, it doesn't mean that they're interfering into their independence, but that inspectorate is there to hold people to account on decisions and procedural errors that may come out as a result of their acts. So it doesn't mean that anybody is interfering with the judiciary, no. But particularly for prosecutors, because I was a prosecutor myself for 20 years, I know we have been checking prosecutors' performances and whatever they do, and reports are made and presented to the superior counsel of the prosecution. So when you see these people spending too much time in police, some of them don't even have access to lawyers, I think we need to really ask ourselves, do we need to detain them anyway? Do we have serious grounds to detain them? Can't we have people in community and others in detention where it is absolutely necessary? Thank you, my Lord.
Thank you very much. Professor Bello.
Thank you very much, my Lord. One simple point that I've always made as often as I have the opportunity is the fact that we've had criminal justice reforms in Nigeria. Have we sat down to estimate the cost of implementing the provisions? And what is the program of action of implementation? If you are talking about recording a conventional statement, it doesn't come cheap. If you are talking of enabling speedy trials, there are ICT facilities that will, so we need to do a costing. What will it cost the Federal Ministry of Justice to implement ACJ at the federal level? What will it cost each of the states? And then what is the program of action? So that we know that in the next 5 years, these are the things we want to do, we tick them. In the next 10 years, these are the things we want to do, we tick them. Unless we do that, we'll keep moving around in circles.
Yes, Madam.
My Lord, mine is to actually an extension of what he says, that Nigeria needs to have a plan. Like we can't trace anybody. If people run away from the prison, jailbreaks that she alluded to, we don't even have a tracking system to find them. We're just going to be moving in the streets, hoping that somebody who's wandering around looks like an ex-inmate. So I think all good things should go together. Let's have Plan Nigeria. We don't even know how many we are to begin with, and we don't have proper street addresses. People cannot be tracked. So first thing first, good reforms, fantastic, but let's place it on something, otherwise it will all collapse.
Yes,
Thank you so much, my Lord. My name is Clement Okech. I am a Deputy Director of Probation in Kenya, and I really enjoyed the key speaker's address. In fact, as he was writing, I was also writing about 10 points plan that my country has done, which I'm not going to share for now because of lack of time, my Lord. But I only want to mention two things, if you allow me. What is the extent of implementation of non-custodial measures in Western Africa, not Nigeria? Because as far as I'm concerned, I've tried to check across the web. I don't find non-custodial measures in Africa. If it is not there, because I think it's only in my country that's elaborate, if it is not there, then why must we not then build Nigeria as a prison? Because you don't have any alternatives. And is that the best human rights in the 21st century to go? Of course not. So as we speak here, the first reform starts with the last end, like Power said, Ogechi said. You cannot give the police the best equipment to sweep the streets, then dump the rubbish where? You don't care about the prisons? Is that not the lowest ebb in terms of human feelings? The judiciary must have a human face. And the human face in the judiciary is by implementing alternative measures. Lastly, I want to say that in our constitution, we made, and it was said, perhaps one of the best constitutions in the world. Why? Because the fundamentals of human rights were embedded fully in the constitution. There is no leverage that was given to judiciary, the judicial officers to try and manipulate. It is all there. Right to fair trial has, and by the way, Professor, I'll give you our constitution as a president from Kenya. You cannot, all offenses available. That's point number one. All offenses available. Secondly, any offense that is triable by and punishable by imprisonment of up to 6 months or fine, you're not allowed to put in custody. So, of course, that has been violated, but those are mechanisms that are there in law that tries to bring in reforms in the justice system. And therefore, there are many things, and if I get time, I'll be able to speak during my time tomorrow on some of the programmatic areas that systems have put in place to try and address the question of congestion and expanding the scope of judiciary latitude to implement and use their discretion and apply law liberally. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. My Lord from Ghana.
Thank you very much. From the address given by the keynote speaker, we all know that we have many things in common. So I'm addressing the situation as if every state, every country we are talking about is Ghana. Although our laws and then constitution say that everybody is presumed innocent until proved guilty, the police take the contrary view. As soon as they arrest somebody, yes, this is a colonial mentality that has been maintained till date, that the accused person is guilty. Even sometimes, I practiced as a lawyer for 23 years before I joined the bench. Now, when you go and argue for bail for an accused person and is entitled to be granted bail, it's another matter altogether. If you don't wait to make sure that the bail is signed, they'll keep him overnight. Because the police think he's guilty. Yes, when they bring cases to court, you think they are rather persecuting than prosecuting. And and since most of these cases that come to court start from the police, if you don't check it from the way, the attitude that the police are trained and how they should look at our law in terms of how they should prepare the investigation and all that, we'll be doing a lot, and therefore the system also not giving the required justice to the people as they need.
Thank you very much, sir. Any other question? All right, Doc. Doc, do you have any response?
Well, just two short ones. The first one has to do with the gravity of an offense and how they treat minor offenses in a similar way as some major offenses. And I always remember the good phrase of Anatole France, who says that law in its majestic independence forbade both the rich and the poor from sleeping under bridges or stealing bread. That is another conception of the law in terms of its impartiality. And like I've always said, the effigy of justice, people say, reflects the fact that justice is blind. And I said, no, look at the effigy very, very well. It is blindfolded and not blind. And it can choose to see when it decides to see and choose not to see when it decides not to. And that is why the conceptual framework has to also be understood in terms of our jurisprudential and philosophical thinking from which the criminal justice system issues from. I didn't have enough time to go into some of those things, but it is also very important to build up an African jurisprudence on criminal law to be the theoretical foundations upon which reforms. Second one from my colleague from Rwanda did indicate non-custodial sentences, and subsequently I thought he clarified it, because there is a very challenging idea as to whether fines are custodial or non-custodial, but it deals with the gravity and quantum of the fine. What is important is that an exceptionally high fine is another short route to custodial sentence. But what we are saying here is that fines can operate at two levels. You fine, you try to restore or give financial restitution to the victim, and then not necessarily putting away the person for 10 or 15 years, and then the victim goes home empty-handed. That is the context in which I was looking at non-custodial sentence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Now,
that one is a judicial microphone, my lord. I want to respond to what Professor Bello has said. I entirely agree with you, Prof. And when the ACJA was passed into law, one of the first things we did was to convene a meeting so that all stakeholders, involved in mention, could actually do a need assessment so that you know what you need to implement the areas that concerns you. And we developed a book which we shared to some of the institutions. But the question is, well, who is actually looking at those books? Because I believe that they are gathering dust in the various libraries of the institutions. So we on our own, we actually did a need assessment, and we brought in all the stakeholders to do a need assessment. What do you need? For instance, issue of recording confessional statement. You don't need an elaborate, equipment to do that. At least with your device, we're able to identify each police station. Can you get this and get that for your, for your officers? At least to start from somewhere, so that for effective implementation. Because we don't need to actually have an elaborate room well equipped to start with. So we have done that, but the question is still fall back to what we are saying. What are they doing with those innovative ideas that we all gather together to put out? They are gathering dust in the various libraries. And I want to commend the learned senior advocates from Rwanda. I entirely agree with you. In fact, what struck me is the Inspector General of the Judiciary. Yes, and my Lord, I think there is going to be a stakeholders where the judges, if the judiciary can actually allow, because the scope, there is this conservative nature of our system where we do not want to allow outsiders to come in. So I think it will call for a stakeholders meeting so that we know how to, but we are going to study how it is being carried out in Rwanda to know how we can replicate that here. Thank you very much.
Professor Peter SN.
Yes, thank you. For me, one of the things I would like to note is that the Administration of Criminal Justice Act is very progressive procedural law. Now, it appears from its provisions that it is far ahead of our substantive criminal law. And that's the point made by Prof. from Ilori. And so having put in place a progressive procedural law, it's now incumbent on us to go back now and look at our substantive laws to see how we can bring them in tandem with the procedural law that we consider progressive. That's the only way we can make progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Kemi Okeyendo.
Two issues. When we're talking about costing of the implementation of laws and policies, the first question I ask is, do we honestly need additional budget all the time? Or does it mean repurposing what already we have? So we need to ask ourselves that question. And when we talk of repurposing, you already have money for transportation, right? What are you using that bulk of the money for transportation for? Can it be repurposed for another line item? When Ondo and met with the Attorney General then with witness compensation and getting people to come to court. And one of the things we asked her is, how do you calculate, right? How do you calculate the sum that is supposed to be paid? Within the civil society sector, within development sector, we have a tracker that is used on mileage. You can decide that you're doing 10 naira per mile, 15 naira per mile, 20 naira per mile, but you make it obvious that this is what we have. And you are also transparent and open with how you calculate, and you allow the person that is coming to know, this is what we have for you, and this is where we have a negotiated agreement with the hotel, this is where you are going to stay. But because of the way we do our things under the table, because there's fraud, there's corruption aligned with it, we are not open and sincere. When we're talking about police entry points on pretrial detention, and I'm finishing here, my lord, that what we have in country, we have the police duty solicitor scheme, which is linked to the Force Order 20, which allows for lawyers to be at police station level, within the police stations, to provide services to people that are being arrested. But till date, Legal Aid Council is not taking the lead in the implementation of the Force Order 20, and it is their Force Order. You're finding civil society organizations being the one taking the lead. What does it take? It's to get, what we're doing is asking for NYSC coppers to be posted. And why is it that NBA and Legal Aid Council cannot do this effectively and provide succor to people? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Danladi Plank.
Yes, sir, just to add to what Kemi has said and those who spoke about resourcing on justice reform, that perhaps one of the big things that we need to do, just like we convince the politicians to ensure that these laws are passed, that perhaps one big thing we need to do is to also convince them and those who are responsible for resourcing of reforms that justice reform is also very important. That justice is as important as the roads, the hospitals, which they always showcase during their campaigns. And that without justice reform, that without justice, it will be impossible for them to govern well or for us to have peace. So it's important we let them know so that they can resource justice reform very well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last but not the least, Ogechi Ogu.
Thank you, my lord. I wish to state that we all work together to still maintain the whole essence of corrections, which is reformation, rehabilitation, and reintegration. Once we lose this, everything is lost. And what we need now is to start implementing innovative provisions that would enable this happen. And one of these is the non-custodial measures. We need to put funds where we have put our mouth. We don't just talk about it and leave it to die. They need money. They need logistics. Everything is required. Resources is what they need now. And already Nigerian Correctional Service is already doing so much, but they need the funding. Nigeria should rise to this responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you agree with me that this has been a very, very lively session. Once more, I thank Benjamin Kumbo. He was a very enlightening presentation. Very brilliant man. The discussants, hear those. Under the plan and round of applause for you. And for yourselves for participating actively. Another round of applause. Thank you very much indeed. I think we'll stay here. I don't know if you have any announcements. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my Lord. Thank you very much, my Lord. Before we proceed, may I announce that before the members of the panel go down, we will take group photograph of the members of this panel so that we can have it on our record that this panel actually sat and had a wonderful session. May I also call on the faculty lead of Jury Trust Center for Legal Research and Documentation for vote of thanks in person of Professor Adedeji, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. You are welcome, madam.
My Lord, the moderator of the keynote panel, and other distinguished panelists, on behalf of the Center and indeed the Criminal Justice Cohort of the MacArthur Foundation, I want to thank you for honoring our invitation. The context, of course, in which the invitations were sent out was quite unique. We were actually playing Nigerian roulette. Those who know Russian roulette will probably know that this panel was actually meant to x-ray in detail the keynote speech. Though that did not come, we are quite happy that the delivery of our keynote speaker was quite lucid, and we thank technology for that. We want to thank Dr. Benjamin Kumbo, a very unassuming person, but no doubt someone of deeper intellect. We want to thank you for the words you brought and shared with us. For each member of the panel here, from my brother, Professor Akwe Kelvin Mejulu, Kemi Okeedo from P1, Danla De Plank, and Uju Agomo, represented by Kinkechi. Ogechi, thank you, Ogechi. We thank you very, very much. And from all our visitors from outside Nigeria, well, the weather is quite friendly now, so I can assure you that Abuja weather can be quite hot in the afternoon, but in the evening quite cool. So when you want to take that palm wine, make it towards the evening, and I can guarantee you a sound sleep. We want to thank all of you who have come from other parts of Nigeria and within Abuja here. Thank you. Tomorrow we start at 9 a.m., right? And we're going to just start our walking sessions. And if you have the program, you can be guided about the program. Lunch should be ready where you had your tea break. I want to wish you a very pleasant afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Adedeji Adekunle, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Lead Faculty, Jury Trust, for the vote of thanks. So please let us, Professor Akpe, we have photograph session for members of this panel, please. Let us have it. And I pray that the lead faculty join them also to take the photograph. So once again, thank you very much for this wonderful program. We go now for our lunch and we return to this hall tomorrow for the continuation of the conference. Do have a wonderful rest. Thank you very much.